Ladies and gentlemen, here's an introduction for your motivational speech, How to Win Alone 2-hour compilation. In the style of Shi Heng Yi, calm, mindful, with deep philosophical grounding and a reflective tone. In life, we are often taught that strength is found in numbers, that companionship is the only path to success, but there comes a time when the journey calls for solitude, a time when the noise of the world must fade, and the only voice you must learn to listen to is your own. This path, the path of walking alone, is not a weakness. It is a strength that very few dare to embrace. It is where you meet the real you, where you learn discipline without supervision, perseverance without applause, and growth without comfort. In this compilation, you are invited not just to listen, but to feel, to reflect, and to rise silently, steadily, without needing permission or recognition, because sometimes the greatest victories are achieved not when the world is watching, but when no one sees except you. This is how you win, alone. Self-discipline is the foundation of solo success. When you choose to walk the path alone, there is no one to hold your hand, no one to remind you of your goals, and no one to motivate you on the days when you feel like giving up. In this solitude, you realize that your success relies entirely on your ability to control your thoughts, your actions, and your reactions. Self-discipline becomes the quiet force that pushes you forward when everything else inside you screams to quit. You wake up early not because someone told you to, but because you have trained your mind to rise before the sun. You stick to your habits, your routines, your systems, not because they are easy, but because they align with the future you are trying to build. There is no cheering crowd, there is no recognition, there is just you showing up again and again, because the version of yourself that you are becoming demands that level of commitment. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it is punishment, something restrictive, something that takes away freedom. But true discipline is the key to freedom. When you master your impulses, your emotions, and your distractions, you gain control. You are no longer pulled in every direction by temporary feelings or external pressure. You become steady, grounded, and clear-minded. This internal order gives birth to progress, and when you are walking alone, progress is your only proof that you're on the right track. Without discipline, your energy becomes scattered. You start projects but never finish them. You make plans but don't follow through. You say things to yourself that you don't believe because your actions keep proving otherwise. But with discipline, everything aligns. Your thoughts, your words, your behaviors, they all begin to move in one direction. That direction is forward, even if it's slow, even if it's quiet, even if no one notices. Discipline teaches you how to delay gratification. In a world obsessed with instant rewards, that ability makes you different. While others chase quick fixes, temporary pleasures, or easy results, you focus on long-term vision. You sacrifice comfort today for strength tomorrow. You say no to distractions, not because you don't feel tempted, but because you've taught yourself that the feeling of growth is worth far more than a moment of pleasure. You learn to find joy in structure, peace in repetition, power in the small wins that nobody sees. The journey alone is hard not because of the physical tasks, but because of the mental war you must win daily. Some days you'll want to sleep in, some days you'll want to give up, some days you'll question why you even started. This is where self-discipline becomes your anchor. It doesn't let you sink into weakness. It pulls you out of your excuses and reminds you of your purpose. It keeps you going when motivation fades and emotion betrays you. It makes your actions stronger than your moods. Self-discipline also teaches self-respect. When you keep your promises to yourself, you begin to trust yourself. That trust builds confidence. You no longer need validation because your own actions give you proof that you can rely on your own word. This is a rare power, the ability to lead yourself, to keep yourself in line, to drive yourself forward. In the silence of solitude, this power becomes visible. It becomes the compass that guides your every decision, every step, and every effort. Solitude reveals your true character and strength. When you're alone, there are no distractions, no masks to wear, no roles to play. It's just you raw, unfiltered, exposed to the mirror of your own thoughts and emotions. In that silence, the truth surfaces. You begin to see yourself not as others expect you to be, but as you really are. There's no place to hide from your fears, your doubts, or your insecurities, but this is where growth begins. It is within the discomfort of being alone that self-awareness sharpens and inner power is discovered. Most people avoid solitude because it forces them to face what they've buried. The noise of the world becomes a shield, a way to escape their own minds. But when you willingly enter the quiet, you begin to understand how much of your identity was shaped by external influences, by opinions, comparisons, and expectations. Alone, those influences fall away. What's left is the real you, your values, your passions, your principles, and your pain. The more time you spend in that space, the more you reconnect with what truly matters to you, not what you were told should matter. Strength doesn't come from being surrounded by support. It comes from knowing how to stand without it. When you win while being watched, that is admirable. But when you win while no one notices, while no one believes in you, while no one is cheering, that is strength. In solitude, every win is self-earned, every breakthrough is self-created. You stop relying on others to motivate you, to lift you up, or to keep you accountable. You become your own coach, your own protector, your own guide. In this process, solitude becomes a training ground. It's where you learn patience, where you build endurance, where you develop resilience. Every moment of doubt becomes an opportunity to dig deeper. Every urge to quit becomes a test of your resolve. The more you endure the loneliness, the more you begin to see it as a gift, not a punishment. It sharpens your focus, strengthens your will, and teaches you how to operate from within rather than being driven by what's happening outside. The strength developed in solitude is silent. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek applause. It shows in the calmness of your response, the steadiness of your actions, and the clarity of your decisions. People will notice something different about you, but they won't be able to explain it. That difference is the result of time spent facing your own darkness and turning it into light. You earn a deeper kind of confidence, not loud or arrogant, but unshakable. Solitude also builds emotional control. When you're alone, you must manage your own mind. There's no one to distract you from your anxiety or your frustration. You learn how to sit with discomfort, how to breathe through stress, how to calm your own storms. This emotional independence makes you powerful because you're no longer ruled by external chaos. You become grounded, unmovable, self-sufficient. When others fall apart in pressure, you remain centered not because life is easier for you, but because you've trained in silence. You've wrestled with your weaknesses. You've walked through your fears. You've faced your own voice and chosen not to run. That voice, once filled with doubt, begins to transform. It becomes supportive, focused, disciplined. That shift is only possible in solitude. No one can teach it to you. No book, no speech, no advice can replace the lessons learned in being with yourself. It is in that space that your foundation is built, your identity is strengthened, and your quiet, unwavering power is formed. Progress in silence builds unstoppable momentum. When you begin to move forward without announcing your every step, something shifts within you. The need for validation fades, and the attention that once distracted you begins to lose its grip. You stop performing for the world and start performing for your future. Each silent step, each unnoticed effort, becomes part of something greater, a force that grows in the background while the world is still asleep to your evolution. Working in silence teaches you that results matter more than recognition. It teaches you the value of patience and persistence. Most people start something new and immediately want to be seen, praised, or rewarded. But real progress doesn't happen under a spotlight. It happens in quiet moments when no one's watching, when there's no applause, and when you're left alone with your own choices. That's where the real work begins. That's where discipline is born. Every day you choose to show up, not because someone is checking, but because you've committed to a higher standard. Momentum builds through consistency. It doesn't need noise. It doesn't need to be broadcasted. The more you work in silence, the more focused you become. Without the distraction of opinions, likes, and reactions, you have space to truly refine your craft, sharpen your mind, and align your actions with your purpose. You learn how to push forward without needing external motivation. You realize that the feeling of growth, even if unseen, is more fulfilling than temporary applause. Progress in silence also makes you mentally stronger. It forces you to rely on your inner voice, your own vision. You're no longer driven by what others expect. You're driven by what you've decided. That internal drive is more powerful than any outside force. It becomes a self-sustaining energy that grows the more you feed it with action. Over time, this silent progress compounds. The results start to show, not because you announced them, but because your effort becomes undeniable. There is something sacred about building quietly. It humbles you. It keeps you grounded. You don't waste energy trying to prove yourself. You channel that energy into becoming better. Every quiet hour spent improving, every repetition completed in private, every decision made to stay focused instead of distracted, adds to your momentum. These invisible victories become the architecture of your future success. In silence, you also protect your vision. When goals are exposed too early, they become vulnerable to doubt, criticism, and interference. But when you move quietly, your goals are safe. You nurture them in private, letting them grow stronger before the world ever sees them. This privacy gives you clarity, and that clarity fuels precise action. You know where you're going, you know why it matters, and you don't need anyone else to understand it because it's yours. The power of silent progress is that no one sees it coming. People may underestimate you. They may assume you've stopped, that you've lost, or that you're stuck. But while they speak, you're building. While they watch others, you're becoming someone they won't be able to ignore. That quiet grind becomes a storm. By the time the results become visible, the foundation is already unshakable. You've done the work, you've built the habits, you've grown the resilience, and it's all been done in silence, far from the noise, far from distraction, far from doubt. Every step you take in silence strengthens your belief. Every action reinforces your identity as someone who follows through, someone who doesn't quit, someone who chooses discipline over attention. That belief is hard to shake because it's earned. It's not based on what people said, it's based on what you did repeatedly when no one was watching. That's the kind of progress that lasts. That's the kind of progress that turns into power. Mental toughness is forged in isolation, not comfort. When you're alone, there is no external support to fall back on. No one to rescue you from your own doubts, and no distractions to shield you from your inner chaos. It's in this solitude, where the noise fades and your thoughts become louder, that your real battle begins. Every weakness, fear, and insecurity rises to the surface, not to break you, but to test you. It is this constant inner confrontation that begins to mold your strength, layer by layer, decision by decision. When you're surrounded by comfort, it's easy to feel confident. It's easy to believe you're strong when everything is going well, and there's always someone to lean on. But true mental toughness is not built in ideal conditions. It's forged when you're tired and still choose to move, when you're broken and still choose to rebuild, when you feel lost but keep going anyway. The mind becomes strong not through ease, but through resistance. And that resistance is felt most deeply when you are walking the path alone. In isolation, you are forced to become your own motivator. There is no one to push you, no one to encourage you, and no one to remind you why you started. You must create that fire from within. This demand to self generate energy, focus, and discipline on a daily basis develops a level of resilience that comfort can never provide. The more you do this, the more your mind begins to adapt. It learns to operate under pressure, to stay composed during setbacks, and to keep clarity even when everything around you feels uncertain. Mental toughness also comes from learning how to endure without breaking. Isolation teaches you this in a way that no crowd ever could. When the days feel long and your goals seem distant, you begin to understand what it means to stay the course, not because of external pressure, but because of internal commitment. That type of endurance, the ability to stay consistent without needing praise or permission, becomes the foundation of your strength. You become harder to shake, harder to influence, harder to break down. In the silence, you begin to have conversations with yourself that the world often helps you avoid. You question your intentions, your patterns, your excuses. You start to identify where you've been holding yourself back, and you begin to shift, not instantly, but gradually, through each small moment of discipline and each choice to do what's difficult over what's easy. This self-honesty, born from solitude, becomes one of your greatest weapons. It clears the noise and gives you clarity about who you are, what you want, and what you're willing to endure for it. Another layer of mental toughness is emotional control. When you're alone, emotions can feel magnified: fear, doubt, frustration, even loneliness itself. But learning to sit with these emotions without letting them control you is part of the strengthening process. You don't run from discomfort anymore. You face it, you breathe through it, you begin to respond instead of react. This calm under pressure, this ability to stay grounded no matter what, is what separates those who break from those who bend and continue forward. What isolation gives you is the ability to become independent not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. You stop depending on external motivation. You stop needing things to go your way in order to stay focused. You build an inner world that is calm, clear, and relentless. You stop giving up when things get tough, because toughness is now a part of you. It's in how you think, how you show up, how you handle pressure. It becomes a silent strength that doesn't boast but never breaks. Winning alone means mastering the inner battle first. The real fight is never with the world outside, it's with the voice inside that doubts your worth, questions your ability, and tempts you to settle for less. When you decide to walk alone, you quickly realize that your greatest challenge is not the path, but the mindset you bring to it. Every step forward is earned through internal victories, overcoming self-doubt, silencing fear, breaking limiting beliefs, and replacing excuses with effort. The mind becomes the battlefield, and your ability to dominate it determines how far you go. The reason many never win alone is because they never learn how to control their thoughts. They are pulled by fear, swayed by insecurity, or trapped in the cycle of overthinking. Without mastering the internal dialogue, every external challenge feels overwhelming. But once you learn to lead your thoughts rather than follow them, everything changes. You begin to separate yourself from the noise of emotion and take command. You start to think with clarity instead of chaos. You respond with purpose instead of panic. This shift is the first sign of inner mastery. To win alone, you must build a relationship with yourself based on truth. You can't lie to yourself and still grow. You have to face the things you've been avoiding, the habits that hold you back, the patterns that sabotage your progress, the stories you've been telling yourself about why you can't change. The inner battle is about exposure. You expose your weakness not to judge it, but to strengthen it. You expose your fear not to hide from it, but to learn how to walk through it. You face yourself not to break, but to rebuild stronger. Mastering the inner battle means holding yourself accountable. When you're alone, no one's coming to remind you of your goals. No one's going to rescue you from your own lack of discipline. It's on you to show up, to follow through, to push when it's hard. Accountability becomes your responsibility. You become both the coach and the player. You set the standard and you make sure you meet it. This kind of self-leadership is rare, but it's what creates unstoppable individuals. They don't wait to feel ready. They act. They don't look for reasons to stop. They look for ways to keep going. Winning alone also means becoming emotionally resilient. The inner battle is not just about mental strength, it's about emotional stability. Learning how to stay composed when things don't go your way. Learning how to keep moving forward even when you're disappointed, frustrated, or afraid. You stop needing perfect conditions. You stop depending on motivation. You train yourself to move regardless of how you feel. That's how emotional control is developed, not through avoiding emotion, but by learning to navigate through it without letting it derail your mission. There is also a spiritual element to mastering the inner battle. It's about knowing your purpose, believing in your path, and staying connected to your deeper reason for starting. This connection gives you strength when the surface-level motivation disappears. When no one understands you, when the results are slow, when the journey feels lonely, that deeper connection anchors you. It gives meaning to the silence. It makes the suffering bearable. It turns sacrifice into fuel. Winning alone is about becoming whole. You don't rely on applause, attention, or support to feel capable. You know who you are because you've proven it to yourself in the dark. You've shown up when it was hard. You've chosen growth over comfort. You've led yourself out of doubt, fear, and weakness. That kind of victory is unshakable because it's not borrowed from the outside. It's built from within, and once you've mastered the inner battle, nothing on the outside can defeat you.